Welcome to Satisfactory. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. And for those returning, welcome back. So in the previous episode, we had been dealing with the steel beams and the encased industrial beams, along with cement and the copper that we were mass producing. And as you can probably see, we've grown a little since that last episode. This was where I had begun to do the steel pipes. And we had thrown up the basic industry inside that building to produce the pipes in quite large quantities now, so that's very nice. And then, in conjunction with that, I'd said with the other mine that I would most likely be using it as a source for a factory that I would place on top of the cliff, top of the hill. And that's what I've done. So here we are, there's the mine down there. And that's now feeding up into this platform here. And that's feeding into an industry that is creating rotors. And so the rotors, we had a need for them for the engines that we're going to require this stage of our industry. It's going to get a little noisy in here. But basically we have our furnaces, our smelters. And they are producing our iron ingots. And those iron ingots are then being fed up here to create the iron rods. And also we have some screws being created as well. If you remember way back when, we actually had a single building. I might be able to show you from here, from the roof. Yeah, we should be able to see just off the edge here. So this building here, if you remember, we were producing, I think it was 4 rotors per minute, which is not good. But it was enough to trickle us through, allow us to have, we had some surplus iron coming from this factory here. So we used the surplus of the iron ingots to come in here. And then we made a few rotors a minute just to help us to get some other research done. That may be torn down at some point and replaced or reconfigured to use that iron for a different purpose, but I've left it as it is for now. And then this factory here is simply this one on steroids. So if we go inside the building, here we are. We're now producing 21 per minute. This is the main factory line once the screws have been fed up to it, along with the pipes. And we have in here, I think 6. Yeah, we have 6 assemblers in here. And then those are then being fed outside to a convenient port that we can then take from. And at the moment we are intermittently taking them in order to create some of the items for the research. So there we have that one coming down, and you can see it's coming into a storage container here. And then that storage container can be fed. At the moment it's being fed down into this factory over here. We have 4 assemblers, and these are making the stators that are an essential part of creating our motors. We have another couple of assemblers up here. You can see here the requirements that are made. So it's sort of overdoing it a bit. I've got it overclocked. As we know, we have only, whatever it was, 21, I think it was up here that was creating per minute. So if I was to run this at full speed, it would dry up very rapidly. If we just set it up to be unclocked in here, that should be the perfect amount coming through from over there to fill it. I'm still working on this particular piece. As you can see, there's no walls or anything, so I will tidy it up at some point and these lines will come in nice and neatly. We also have our usual assembler over here that is creating advanced parts that we then put into our manufacturer over here, which we have doing the adaptive control units at the moment. It's going to take a while to make those. The computers are very, very slow. We don't really have an industry for computers yet. That brings us on to our very last addition to our base here. This is my own personal manufacturing plant / research with the awesome sink and the MAM. And now if I walk up here, we have a small building. And this small building has one assembler in the bottom here, and that can produce whatever I set it to produce. I have various materials along here, so I come in here. At the moment I've set it up for circuit boards because we need computers and we need plastic for the computers, which is very tricky to come by at the moment. And those are then fed in from 2 containers depending on what I need. And then on the second floor we have the manufacturer, and that also has 4 containers, a bunch of components, and then we have the output. And I've had it making computers, as I was talking about with the phase 3 item that we need there. We're going to need 200 computers. And actually that brings us on to the next part. We're now going to go and start working with oil, and this is something we've held off up until now that we have a nice base up and running. As I explained in the previous episode of getting distracted, well, now we've pretty much covered everything we need. We've got our copper, we've got our iron, we've got our steel industries, we've got many of the other components that we require that are being created for us in various factories. It's not large scale for the main components. They obviously require huge amounts of equipment to be brought in from other sites as well. But for now, I think we have a good system up and running to enable us to head towards the completion of phase 3. That's the tour done now of what we've created here, what's remaining. And for those of you that were involved in the discussion about colour, and I'm pointing at you, Goku, you can see here I've tried to play with a few ideas. This is for the copper colour. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, it's kind of fun. I will do what I can. There are some industries where there really isn't a colour scheme I can utilise, for example, for a motor. But whereas you can see over here, that's pretty much this colour scheme for the encased industrial beams. Same for the steel beams there, I've tried to colour it there. But when it comes to large manufacturing plants that are doing quite complicated parts that don't really have a scheme, I will play with a few ideas and try and keep it interesting, but I think the channel colours will be predominant in those particular buildings. Anyway, thanks for getting involved in that particular idea, and if you've got more suggestions, please just drop them in the comments below. Now, time to go over to the oil. So I'm going to set myself up over there and I'll bring you back when I'm ready and we will discuss how this all works. So I'm back where our oil fields are, and I've put down a footprint for our foundation as well as some oil pumps. And I'm sort of laying out now a basic factory outline that we're going to be using. Now, oil is quite a complicated thing to use in this game. It can be quite confusing, but I'll go into a little bit of extra detail where I feel it's necessary. The most important thing before you start, if you're unfamiliar with this setup, is that with this one you're bringing it out of the ground and you're refining it. And when you're refining it, depending on what you refine, you will get byproducts from that process. Some of those byproducts will be either in liquid form or in solid form. You can store them as they come out as a byproduct, but unless you have a way of actually getting rid of the byproduct, either with a FICSIT sink or with an actual production line of some sort, converting something like a resin or an oil into a fuel, you'll end up with a bottleneck and it'll just grind everything to a halt where your oil is fine and there's plenty coming through and your refinery is perfectly capable of pumping out additional resources to making plastic or rubber or something, but your byproduct has ceased to move anymore because you've run out of storage space or you're not doing enough with it to get rid of it to allow the rest of it to flow. And that can complicate things. Now, I know that sounds like a lot if you're not familiar with this. It will make sense as we go through this. But the most important thing is to remember as you begin, give yourself plenty of space to work with. Because when you come from one oil pump into a refinery, you're probably going to need to branch off into several other refineries and several other manufacturing plants, all producing a particular item at the speed of output that you have coming from your initial refinery. So we have our first oil pump up and running now, and we have a small liquid reservoir just to give us a little bit of a buffer in case for some reason the power cuts or something like that and the oil is unable to get through. That's going into the wall there, and then that's going to feed out into 4 refineries. Now these refineries are going to eat through quite a lot of energy to produce what they need to produce, and they're going to be producing plastic. It's going to be a lot of plastic. Plastic is used a lot with computers and that kind of stuff. So we're going to run this pipe here, finish it up on that one there. These pipes produce 300 meters cubed, I think. Let's have a look. I'm not really sure how the flow rates compare in terms of regular supply, but I think that as long as we've got enough coming in. If we click on the plastic here, you can see here it requires 30 per minute of crude oil. So we're going to split that off into 4 of these. And I'm going to do that with you because I want us to do this together so it makes a bit more sense, hopefully. We use a splitter basically to do the angles that can then connect into the machine. So we're just going to run this one all the way down to the end and try and get it as nice and level as we can before it goes into the machine. There we go. So we have a nice start. And then we will now split with these as well. So I'm going to want to junction. Now if you hit the control button while you're placing something down, as you can see here, it'll snap it to where the other pipe is. But in this particular case, our pipe is slightly offline from the wall there. What I could do, actually, I could guess, because it's not really going to mess too much with the flow. Let's see, if I come here now and place one of these straight away, it might make that a little cleaner. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm going to ignore that door for now. Okay, let's see how that works now with this one. Yeah, that seems it's mildly better. It's very slightly out, but not by a lot. Pop that one in there. We should be able to put a pipe down here. Yeah. So we're going to run along and do this along here. Again, control key, snap. Middle mouse button. Boom. And so we're all connected up with these machines. And then for each one of these, we're going to select plastic. Sorry, that's wrong. Not residual. Now on this last one, I'm going to explain what I was talking about earlier on about byproducts, because I realise I've just missed that. So you can see here, if we select plastic, it's going to cost us, as it says in the bottom corner there, 3 in oil. But it's going to produce, if you look next to the heavy oil residue, you see here it says 2 plastic, 1 meter cubed of heavy oil residue with the purple fluid that it's got there in the next to the image. And so that purple fluid needs to be dealt with. Now this one here, petroleum coke for example, does utilize that, which is fine. You can convert that into this carbon-rich distilled material. But a better one to do, if possible, at the beginning is residual fuel. The nice thing about this one is that it will require less refining to create the fuel. It'll eat up lots and lots of this residual stuff for you. That can then be passed on to a fuel power plant. And as long as you have the balance right and you have that flow constantly going, it can produce enough energy to run the power plant that's kicking out. Let's have a look. Go to power here. fuel powered generator, 250 megawatts that will kick out with the materials that will be fed in. So as long as we can keep that plastic moving, we won't have a problem. And with something like making computers and things like that, keeping the plastic moving usually isn't too much of an issue. But in this case, the fuel or the power plant that we're going to create for this one really is going to be more of a buffer burn off because we have plenty of power coming in anyway. So let's set these up. And now we just need to get power to them. So in the same way that we've been doing before, we're just going to encase these into the building itself, get it nice and clean. We'll put a window in here. I guess we can go with something like that for here. So we're going to want to feed the surplus of these machines also into a buffer. So again, we have runoffs for fuel. For example, if your plastic kind of halts at some point for some reason, it can continue filling up the buffer. And more importantly, the fuel power plant can actually maintain itself running so you don't suddenly have a drop in power. I've set up the power now, and that's going to be running off of a switch coming from outside to the main power supply. So the way we're going to run this is on every single machine we're going to have a fluid buffer, and as you can see here I've linked the fluid buffer. And if I seem like I'm going through too much detail, I apologize, but this is for people that aren't very familiar with it in case they're following along. So we're going to have the residual fluid coming out, this heavy oil residue here, and you can see the listing here, the kind of materials that you can produce from it. That's going to feed into this, which will then feed outside again. These will all link up, much as we've done to link it all together on the outside. This one will link together on the inside and feed out, and that's going to go to another refinery that's going to be on the ground level, because we don't want to be messing around with pumps whilst we can work on the ground with the oil. Anything fluid, try and keep it at the lowest level you can. So the next thing we're going to do, because we're going to have pipe running along this floor across here to connect these, it also means that these outlets here can't really come straight out or they're going to bump into the pipe. So we're going to feed those upwards. Again, we will probably merge them together. It might seem kind of pointless to do this particular one here, but we're going to do it anyway. And we're going to do what I was mentioning before as well, using foundations to help us when it comes to adding things like the mergers and splitters. Just while we're positioning everything. So as you can see, we're coming out of here. We're going to want to merge this one. So that's coming in. We want it to go in that direction there. So hit the control button. And it's fairly central there. Don't want it going through the fluid buffers. So that one can go there. That one can go there. And that one there. Okay, so we're going to go in there, and then I'm actually going to put a second one because we want the really huge buffer for the plastic. That way we'll have less chance of the system grinding to a halt. Now, as you noticed, I placed this one on top in the other direction, so this ground one was going in this direction, see the orange arrow there? And then the one I place on top is going in this direction, coming out there. And then what we do, we go to the back, and we connect them up, so we're going from the top one on the bottom to the bottom one on the top. And now we have a link connecting those two boxes, so anything coming in here will come in, and then it'll be immediately fed up into the top container there, and then once that one is full, this bottom one will start filling up. So that gives us a huge buffer there. Now we'll get rid of these. I'm probably going to go out to the wall here. I would rather be coming out like this, straight out there, and lining up with this buffer. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do this, and then the others I can do as we've done previously. Basically going to have Mark 1 pipe. And then we'll take this one all the way down. There we go. And now we're going to just throw in some junctions. Again, hit the control key. Beautiful. So now we just have to connect this one to the wall. Now everything should be nicely connected up for us to go. So as soon as we start this machine up now, oil's going to pump. I think that's online. Looks like it has power going to it. I'm going to delete this cable here actually. Let's redo that one in there just quickly. I think we will start here. There we go, not too shabby. Alright, that should start up again now. So that's back up to pressure. Let's go and flick them on and get that whole system up and running. So also out here, I've put down our plastic so that we know what's going on in here specifically for this one. And let's just have a quick check and see, 20 per minute. Okay, that's great. So we're doing 80 per minute coming out of here unclocked. So let's adjust that. Just go into here. And then we will just type in 80. There we go. And now let's switch on the machines. It's all sounding like it's coming up to speed. This is great. Let's have a look and see. Yeah, look at that. Straight away we have plastic coming through. That's nice. That's very nice. You can see this one is empty. It just comes in for a split second and then leaves. And this is the one that's going to give us what we need. So I'm going to grab those. And then I think for practicality, we might actually have this coming to this wall over here and just leading straight outside. So when the time comes that we actually need the plastic for something, it's ready to go. Sorted. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Excellent. And so now we have this pipe leading out here. This has got our fuel. All right, so we have our residue coming out of here. And that's leading into this machine, the refinery. This is creating our fuel for us now. And then I've put this one into one of the large fluid buffers. So the next thing is going to be to encase this into the same factory complex as this one. So it's part of the same system. And then I think because this is all pretty much one industry in itself, then I will pump up onto the top the fuel for a power station so that we have a little bit of extra space here for these other oil patches that we have. So that's what we've got coming in. And then we have our fuel being produced here. That's then piped out here. And there you can see we have a nice trickle of fuel coming in. It's not a lot, but it's a great way to get rid of the residuals, get lots and lots of plastic coming in. And I think what we might do as well, this oil patch that we have here might be used for rubber. So here's my thinking so far. Originally we had the one refinery that was converting this fluid. But now that we know this is a pure node, we're going to take that out and we're going to do something with rubber or maybe a couple of different industries, byproducts. And then we're going to send that heavy residue down this pipe here, which is going to join up with the one we've got coming from that building there. So these three will be turning all of the residue into fuel. And that will then be fed into this large container here. We're creeping closer now to the completion of this area. So I've built in a somewhat organic factory here. When I say organic, I mean rather than just creating very tall walls everywhere and blocking stuff in, I've decided to place walls and ceilings where they would be naturally capped off by a machine or something like that. And so you can see it kind of creates almost an organic design to the factory. Gives it a little bit more life than a cereal box. So we have our machines up and running in here now. We have the residual oil coming through. It's not set up yet for the rubber that's going to be coming from outside here. But this is the residual that's been coming in from the other factory over there, so it's got enough to be getting on with for the meantime. So I have 3 rubber refineries up and running here, or not running yet, but up and set here, similar to the plastic that we had in the other building over there. And this is feeding in now to our fuel producer, which is going to be, just need to double check. So 60 per minute. Not sure if it's just 2 we need or possibly 3. I know that the ones in there were producing. Let's go and have a quick check, make sure. Alright, so our output on this one is 10 per minute. Okay, so then 60 per minute. At the moment it's piping out for these 3, but I can actually double up on that as well. I have another 3 refineries. I haven't decided quite what I'm going to put up yet. But it does seem as if we may have slight overkill in here with 3 of these things at that rate. I should have checked that more carefully. So 60 per minute for 1. Yeah, that would have been all of this really. Just one of those would have been fine. But as I say, I can pipe as much waste as possible into this plant here and then utilize whatever's required as and when it's needed. I'm going to double up on this one anyway, so we're definitely going to require a second one at least. And then we have another oil refinery over here. So again, it would be very easy to pipe in any residuals over to there as well. So I think we're good. It's given us a buffer now, so we can actually get rid of waste, and we're using up a lot less space rather than setting up an additional system. So the additional refineries that we've got running here, I've decided we will have 2 pure fuel ones. So this is going to take the crude oil at 60 per minute, and it's going to have a residue, or resin rather, that it will kick out afterwards. There's 2 of those. And then to equalize the amount perfectly for the crude oil, we're going to have 1 more plastic coming out, because I know that plastic requires, or rather there's a lot of things that require plastic, so I want as much as possible. And I'm going to feed this run round to the other plastic factory so that it merges in with that supply as well. So it's all part of that one. And again, that does the 30 per minute. So for the oil that we have, the crude oil that we have coming out from our oil extractor over here, 240, we have exactly enough to run 3 rubber, 1 plastic, and 2 pure fuel. And then this fuel is also being fed up via some pumps here, and that's going to run along the wall here, through here, across here, through this wall, down, and then that also joins our other refineries that are creating fuel, and it's placed it into the fluid buffer here. Alright, so we're back and we're up and running, and it would seem that everything is working as intended. So coming out of our buffer room here for the oil residue, which is collecting all of our waste materials and creating fuel out of it, we have what appears to be an ever slightly growing fuel, which is great. I'll explain that why in a second. And then we come into here where we have 80 fuel per minute being created and some rubber. And we also have a tiny bit of plastic that's being fed out. And then we have fuel being made. And then in the final one, we have the polymer resin that is being taken from the fuel crafter here. We got 30 per minute being produced. And I've overclocked the machine to take 60 per minute, so we have exactly the right amount being crafted or created from there, taken in here, created into rubber, fed over into this one here, which is empty for the moment. This probably will all come to a grinding halt until I can find something to actually do with all of the rubber. But we have a nice steady flow coming in now, which is fantastic. Rubber is actually quite slow ordinarily, but you can see here we have plenty going on. And then we have the waste material from here that is being fed from these machines, and that then pipes into this building here. And I should be safe to delete that, yes. The wall and door in there. And then this is fed then into another container here, and as you can see, this is excellent. We don't have much residue sticking around. This is what we need, because if that fills up at any point and gets to the point of stopping, then we're in trouble. Everything will start shutting down and things will stop producing. Anyway, once we've finished on this area down here and creating our fuel and our plastic and our rubber, we then have our huge buffer of fuel here. And you can see masses of fuel in there. It's gaining slightly, but that's a good thing. We can keep taking from that. And then if I just do a quick ladder here. That goes up to another reservoir that's absolutely full. And then that is being fed into a fully overclocked. You can see here we've got 3. And we're producing masses and masses of energy on that one. And then we have a second one over on this side as well, on the roof. And so those are being fed to this pylon here. And then that pylon can then be fed out in any direction that I want to assist the power grid where needed. I also have space for another one of these, and I could pipe up some more fuel as well. In fact, I could split it off of there. Let's see. I would rather have too much power that occasionally shuts down than too much fuel that occasionally kind of prevents everything from running. That should be fine. And then I should be able to do one on this line. Like that. And then what we can do, we can split off the fuel. If we bring a pipe down, I'm going to use the good pipes. I don't need to, but I'm going to, because we have them. So let's take this to there. Get this place looking properly industrial, shall we? And we'll take this one to here. Hopefully we can get this to work. And then, well, for now we can just snap this one to here, I think, rather than messing around with all of that there. So we'll go with the Mark II just here, I think. There we go. 20 per minute. So we have those two doing 40 per minute. This one is doing 50 per minute on its own, and so is that one. So at some point I'm going to obviously have to calculate exactly what's being created here. So there it is. We now have a properly working oil manufacturing plant, and we still have one of our oil deposits there. So I'm going to take the opportunity to end the episode here. I hope it's been some use to you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions about how oil works, or if you have any advice, or you noticed something that I did that maybe wasn't so good, drop it in the comments below. And I am planning at some point to do a little bit more of a short video on how to connect up oil and the basics of how it all works. So again, if you're interested in watching a video like that, then drop it in the comments below as well, and I'll see if it's something that is worth doing. Anyway, until the next time, take care. Bye bye.